I've been doing some research recently and I realized I've been going with this whole filmmaking thing all wrong. I've been trying to do stuff like improve my screenwriting so I can create stronger dramatic narrative structures, trying to work on my portfolio so I can raise more money in order to continue to practice my craft, work on my artistry, work on my message. Sounds like a good process for losers. I stumbled across a little movie called After Last Season, and I realized all you need to make in this biz are some construction sites, paper and cardboard, literally nothing else, and then you pocket $5 million. Watch out, Hollywood, I'm coming for you. So this is a struggle every single time I turn on the camera to do a YouTube video. I'm naturally not very fashionable, so I always try to pick like quirky outfits, you know? This is my Rosie the Riveter outfit. Maybe people will click on the thumbnail if I'm wearing it. And I'm never happy with it. I wish I had a better sense of fashion, but I just don't. And so then I try to do things like, what if I put a red scrunchie in my hair? Will that make people click on the video? I don't know. Oh my god. And then I think maybe I should put in a hairband. That might make people click on the video because, you know, oh, there's a quirky girl in a onesie and a hairband. I almost like the hairband. I almost like the scrunchie better. Now I look like I'm in an 80s video. Actually, that could be fun. This is the look we're going for today. I kind of look like a wacky children's entertainer, but you know what? It's YouTube. Let's get wacky. Let's have some fun. Let's not be too serious about it, you know? Okay, now we have to do the actual YouTube video. I've watched a lot of movies, especially B movies. Everyone knows the big ones, like The Room, Troll 2, and Sharknado.
Claudia, move!
But the most puzzlingly awful movie I've ever watched, hands down, is a movie from 2009 called After Last Season. So this is how the movie starts. Various blinking boxes. Then we go to a white screen where the title is revealed in chunks for some reason. This part was so fucking slow, I sped it up by 200%. And it's still too slow. Why would the director decide to do this? It's such a bizarre, uninformative, boring way to introduce your movie. When I watched it with my friend who was helping me out with Shorelines, the adjective he used was astounding. He was astounded at how bad it was.
Computer room on the first floor is being moved to the second. I went to print some documents and a technician said the printers had been moved.
What? I found this movie through one of my favorite YouTube movie reviewers, Ralph the Movie Maker, where he explores kind of the technical mistakes and aspects of the film.
Then we cut to the Prolosis Corporation. I don't know if you guys noticed or not, but this sign was added in post. Could you tell? I sure couldn't tell.
I'm more interested in the production behind the garbage. At this point, I will say all my hypotheses or conspiracy theories around this movie are all alleged and purely speculative, so please don't sue me. I'm just coming to conclusions based on what I can see in the actual movie, the IMDb page, and interviews with the director and actors. After Last Season is a thriller about two medical neurology students who create a device that allows them to visualize a serial killer. At least I think that's what the movie's about. The problem with most B movies is usually a really low budget. This movie had a budget of $5 million in 2009. You know what other movies have a budget of $5 million? These ones. You can do a lot with $5 million. I've budgeted 2 movies at this point. I don't know much, but I know some things. And I know the really basic parts of a movie budget include production, which is locations, camera equipment, actors, production design, and crew. And then post-production, which is assembly, editing, special effects, and finally soundtrack and sound design. If you are a big studio movie, then you have a bunch of marketing and distribution costs. I'm not super familiar with that because I'm not a huge movie director yet, but I know that can get very expensive. After Last Season takes place in a lot of super cinematic locations, like a basement that looks like a prison, a bunch of residential homes, construction sites, and parking lots. What is also really unusual about this movie is that a lot of it is set at night, and all of those night scenes are limited to the construction site locations. The day scenes take place mostly in residential homes. According to an interview with the writer-director Mark Regan, he has a day job as a business manager at a real estate company and owns his own construction business. Based on the movie sets, I think he filmed all the day scenes at his own residential home and maybe the homes of some friends and family members. For the night scenes, I think he used his company's real estate properties that were under construction when the workers weren't there. The movie was shot in the middle of winter, and according to the actors, it was so cold that when they were on set, they could see their breath. Based on this evidence, I think the director spent $0 on these locations. Hey everyone, so this is the location of my next film. I'm super excited for you to see it. It's got this bare industrial look. That fluorescent light is shining right on me. It's gonna look great on camera, super cinematic. Look at this. You can't buy this. This only comes from shooting on site. No green screen here. It's gonna look awesome. Also, weirdly enough, this movie was shot all on film. Not a digital camera, but on film stock going through a film camera. This means that the movie was a lot more expensive to shoot. On average, it's about 5 times more expensive to shoot something on film rather than a digital camera. According to the film credits, this movie was shot on a 35mm Arriflex camera and with Kodak film stock. Looking online, you can rent an Arriflex camera for about $1,000 a day, but that doesn't include lenses or film stock. In an interview with Filmmaker magazine, the director mentioned that principal photography took place over the course of 6 days. I don't know how much film stock was used or the lens on the camera, but we can assume over a 6-day period, renting the camera, lens, and buying film stock was probably between $10,000 to $15,000. When I investigated the IMDb of this movie, I was shocked to learn that all the major actors were real actors who have starred in other feature films and shorts. The film also thanks the Screen Actors Guild, implying that this was a union-approved project. Jason Kulas, the main lead, is quite active on social media and has talked extensively about the production of this movie. In his interview with Filmmaker magazine, Jason Kulas mentions how everything was shot for the edit. That means the director only shot the cuts and angles that he needed for editing. Usually, especially with new filmmakers, you shoot for coverage. You shoot the full scene from multiple angles, starting with the wide and then going to the master, then the mid-close, and then finally at the end, the close-ups. This is very time-consuming, but it means that in the edit you have a lot of options to choose from. Shooting for the edit means you shoot the wides, masters, and close-ups that you need for the edit, and when you're in the editing room, you only have one option to choose from. In addition to that, Kulas mentioned that to preserve film stock, they only did 1 take of every scene. These 2 elements combined result in a movie that's bizarrely shot and terribly acted. To give credit to the actors, I don't know how you could possibly make this writing sound natural.
It's easier to repair a nerve in the hand than a nerve in the spinal cord.
It's a small world, huh? I mean, we're in the same graduate program and interns at the same company.
And when the employee wouldn't open up the lab for him, Eric Nelson began to strike him.
In some rare cases, a very young person may have lost a great portion of one side of their brain, and the remaining side will develop new functions usually associated with the other side of the brain.
I took a small portion of the nerves around the ankle and grafted them into your arm.
Well, there's little discomfort in my foot, and the numb sensation doesn't bother me as much anymore.
This picture was taken for Dr. Raymond. It's an image of his patient's brain. And this is a normal brain.
I've never been to that town, but I've been through it.
The main cast includes 15 actors with 2 mains, and with the base pay of $100 a day over a 6-day period, I estimate that the cost for actors was probably between $10,000 to $15,000. The production design of this movie is completely perplexing. The vast majority of props in this movie consist of paper, cardboard, folding tables, boxes, and construction equipment. Yes, that is an MRI machine built out of cardboard and paper. Paper on the wall, cardboard as background for most scenes, haunted storage containers. That is a construction light, cardboard box that does neurological science stuff. There is white paper and cardboard in almost every scene of this movie. I don't even think the actors are wearing costumes. They just look like normal clothes the actors showed up to set in. The scenes that take place in the residential homes aren't designed in any way. That's a ceiling fan in a doctor's office. This is just a long shot of someone's pantry. They couldn't get photos to put in these frames? Why would you have them in this scene at all if you can only show the back of them? Based on the props and sets that I can see in the movie, I think I'm being generous if I estimate that it cost $5,000 to pull that off. You can buy a lot of cardboard and paper for $5,000. My number one concern with filming anything is physical safety. I just can't stand when people don't pay attention to their surroundings and just do whatever. Honestly, like, nothing is worth risking people's lives. Nothing's worth it. Like, you don't have to get your shot. Just pay attention to the rules. Like, just what? I don't need this. Why do I need that for? I got all this paper here. I just cannot get this to light. I just hope Mark Regin really took safety seriously when he was filming after last season. Everyone should have WSIB. There should be those faucets where people just put their face in it whenever something goes wrong. Honestly, it's not worth it. When the actors were interviewed about the production of this movie, they expressed that they were surprised when they showed up to set and it was just the director and a film camera. It turns out the writer-director was also the producer and cinematographer. That setup is for people like me who spend a maximum of $2,000 on a movie, not a $5 million SAG-approved feature film. According to the director, he had some crew of his own, between 10 and 20 people, which contradicts the statement from the actors. When asked to describe the crew, he said, "The crew was made up of people I hired before the shoot. Some were carpenters. They were not film people. They helped me build the sets." I have a feeling the carpenters are from the director's own construction company. Not sure how much he was paying them, but looking at these sets, it wasn't a whole lot. The director mentioned that principal photography costs between $30,000 and $40,000, which makes sense to me. Approximately $15,000 for equipment, $15,000 for actors, $5,000 for production design, and finally $5,000 for crew. So where did the other $4,960,000 go? To post-production, of course. The editing of this movie is totally bizarre. We're gonna go through the first scene of this movie and talk about why the editing is so terrible.
While you're inside the MRI scanner, you'll be able to talk through the two-way channel.
Generally, you want to stitch movement together between takes. This person just looks like he teleported from profile to facing camera. It's incredibly jarring. Again, same thing with this actress. It's obvious she wasn't moving forward at the start of the clip. It looks like she was waiting for action and then started to move forward. If you're doing a cutaway to a piece of paper or a button or something, you need to establish where in the room that item exists before cutting away to it. You just lose all orientation when you don't do this.
Hold still. The first image is about to form.
The editor here is using some B-roll. Generally, when you use B-roll, you want to be trying to communicate something, whether it be a certain atmosphere of the set, or maybe beautiful production design, or foreshadow something later.
Breathe normally.
It's unclear what the director and editor are trying to do with these little segments. Also, in general, when you point your camera at something, you want the object of focus to be center frame, not bleeding onto off screen where no one can see it.
I'm going to take one cross section I'm going to take one photo of a cross-section.
The actress basically says the same line twice. That's because the first time she flubbed the line and she knew she had flubbed the line, so she said it again. But the editor decided to keep the mistake in the film.
The doctor will examine the images and talk to you.
Again, there's just no matching of movement, so everyone looks like they're teleporting to different spots in the room. And finally, I find this so baffling, the editor decided to end the scene on a still of a ceiling fan. That's just a ceiling fan you would find in any residential home, and he concluded the scene with this image. What is he trying to say? Imagine if I'd edited shorelines like this.
The pandemic excuse, seriously? What have you been waiting for, a medical miracle? You know it's gonna take at least 6 months for the vaccine to come through.
I'm not making an excuse. I'm just saying I hated my job before. The only thing I liked about it was going into work, and now I literally spend 8 hours a day doing something I hate.
Just find another job.
I think the way the movie was shot really affected the edit. When you have no coverage and the actor does one take of every scene, it's just gonna be so choppy. I checked out the credited editor, Vincent Grass, and he only has one credit, After Last Season. This editor, who edited a $5 million SAG-approved feature film, has no website, no LinkedIn, no nothing. I cannot find anything on this person. Based on the editing, he also could have been a child at the time, because no adult, even with zero experience, could edit a film this incompetently. The director explicitly stated in an interview that he spent most of the money on special effects. In an earlier interview, you stated that the film's budget was $5 million, which seems like a high number considering you had a tiny shooting crew. It's correct. When we shot, the budget was $30,000 to $40,000, but to do those special effects and the computer animation, the budget went to that number. To $5 million? Yeah, and that includes other things. I have yet to talk about this, but the peak of this movie, the cinematic tour de force, is a solid 30-minute period where the two main actors close their eyes and use the cardboard neurological device to visualize the serial killer as bad plug-in graphics. They look like the animations that a first-year university student would put together in an Intro to Blender course, not what you would pay $4 million for. And there is a whole team credited to the animations in IMDb. They, of course, only have one credit, After Last Season. These are just basic shapes, circles, squares, cones. Why is everything overlapping and clipping? Sometimes the shapes expand and contract for no reason. It's also been confirmed that some of the special effects were used to fix the sets. This mostly involved adding random white segments to the background of scenes. I looked at the company who was credited for all the special effects, a company called Multiple Visuals. Couldn't find any record of them. I emailed the only special effects person with a credit outside of After Last Season, but I haven't gotten any response. Just browsing through the IMDb, I'd estimate that 99% of the post-production crew members only have one credit, After Last Season.
She's throwing objects across the room.
The sound quality of this movie is terrible.
When not entirely successful in some experiments, the brain signals are processed and converted into numerical values.
A lot of the dialogue is very hollow, echoey, and distant sounding.
The image is becoming sharper. I can see someone.
It's a person, yeah. I see a woman. She's wearing some sort of blouse.
I know this often happens when you use an onboard mic because I struggled with the same thing with my first short film before I bought a boom mic with the money I got from my very generous Indiegogo contributors. That's cringe. There are 4 people with sound credits on the IMDb page, but of course, this is their only film credit. It's weird that there are people credited with this role at all because according to Filmmaker magazine, Mark Regan did the sound himself. When we were shooting, I had one assistant camera and myself, and that was the crew. I did the sound, I did the lighting. In addition to the terrible audio, the soundtrack is totally bizarre. It's the same 4 notes in different instruments, all that sound digital.
We've been in this neighborhood for almost 2 years.
You've turned this into a really neat room.
We repaired the walls, then John and I painted them. Before that, you could see crack lines extending from the ceiling.
Were these taken while you were in Arrington?
It's almost as if you took a digital keyboard and played the same notes over and over again with different instrument presets. There we go. So just go to String Ensemble, preset 56 on your digital keyboard. This is a Yamaha, and you could score a whole movie like this. Again, the composer only has 1 film credit, no LinkedIn, no website, and no evidence of existence. The incompetence of this movie is so mind-blowing that at times it crosses over from unintentionally funny to baffling to legitimately scary. There are some scenes that are so raw and unnerving that I actually feel tension because it has the atmosphere that literally anything could happen.
I don't see anything moving.
This scene is so weirdly shot, the production design is so bare, and they're just in an empty construction site. I feel like one of them could get human trafficked or just die, like in a snuff film. Why do I think this movie might be a scam? In this supposedly $5 million movie, there is only $30,000 to $40,000 that I can see on screen. There is no way $4 million went into post-production. Actually, it's more than that. It's $4.95 million. There is no way that much money went into post-production. The editing is disorienting. The special effects was made by a student in like an Intro to Blender course, and anyone with a digital piano could have made that soundtrack. The director made the trailer, and I would bet money that that is his voice in the voiceover.
Inside a research company, scientists are developing a technology that changes the thoughts of a person into pictures. The technology
There's some kind of ornament on the door.
may help the students see.
If you can see a murder before it happens, we can do something about the next one.
What can I do?
After last season.
He released the movie into 4 theaters for 6 days, and he did 1 run of DVD prints. He did 1 interview with Filmmaker magazine and has no contact information. The theaters that premiered his movie actually burned the film stock after, because they made so little money it was too expensive for them to send the film stock back. Most of the people involved in this movie can't be found, and I have a sneaking suspicion they were made up to create a fake credit. I think the director used this movie to launder money or as a potential tax break for friends and family. Take a bunch of money, make a legitimate film on paper for pennies, and then write the rest off as a tax break for the arts or something. This is all alleged, and I have no solid proof, but what other reason would the filmmaker have to do this? $5 million is a lot of money, and he could have made at least a watchable movie that would have been picked up for distribution. If his intention was to create a cult film, why remain so anonymous? If you look online, there's a dedicated fan base to this movie, and the director could have risen to a Tommy Wiseau level of notoriety.
The worst film of the year.
Which we haven't seen either, I'm pretty
After
sure.
last season.
No
it
clue.
opened in 4 theaters. There's actually a club online called the Pineapple Club, which is just people who have seen this movie that get together to talk about it.
Unless he was hiding out because he didn't want to draw attention to the movie because it was a front for something bigger. I'm just speculating, but what do you folks think? Do you think this is a real movie or all a scam? Let me know in the comment section below. That's it for today. Please like and subscribe and follow me on Twitch, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff. Bye!